Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. Joining us to talk about the political stories making headlines is Newsmax contributor and political analyst Dick Morris. Dick is the author of the brand new book, 2010 Take Back America, A Battle Plan. Dick, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Plenty to talk about. President Obama has nominated Solicitor General Elena Kagan for the U.S. Supreme Court. She lacks a judicial record and has zero experience as a judge. However, like you, she served as White House advisor under President Clinton. Dick, what can you tell us about her? And if confirmed, what kind of justice do you think that she would be?
Well, I think that the president who had no record selected a judge who had no record. And we tried to guess what Obama would be like, and we all got it wrong. And it's going to be very hard to guess what Kagan is going to be like. I think I'm really looking forward to an exploration of her views and of her conduct and the things she's done. The one thing I learned about her that gave me some cause for unease was her decision to ban military recruiters from Harvard Law School because of her opposition to the don't ask, don't tell policy. And she was worried that that would compromise gay and lesbian students who attended Harvard Law School, and that strikes me as a little far-fetched. So I look forward to an exploration of it. I don't think the fact that she has no judicial experience is going to be a big impediment, and I'm rather glad that the president is no longer just staying within the realm of people who've actually been on the court before.
Dick, at a time when America's patriotic young men and women are in harm's way in Iraq and Afghanistan, should President Obama be appointing to the nation's highest court someone who appears to be openly hostile toward the military?
Well, no, and I want to hear her statements and the kinds of things she said to see if she is, in fact, openly hostile to it. But that certainly is a basis for concern, and I'd like to hear more about what she said at that time.
Let's talk elections, because this month, the coming months are going to be really, really big. Senator Bob Bennett of Utah has lost his bid for a fourth term when delegates voted him out of the Republican primary on Saturday after the Tea Party threw its weight behind another candidate because activists felt that Bennett wasn't conservative enough, mainly because of his backing of last year's Wall Street bailout. What can we learn from Bennett's loss?
Well, I think the Tea Party movement, as I've said before on these shows, is really energizing and cleaning out the Republican Party. It's a cleansing tide, and you'd want no better example than this. Bennett's a very wealthy guy who was really elected in Utah with no particular qualifications, just a lot of money. And he's a centrist Republican. He votes kind of with the administration when they're in power, and does really what the mainstream old-line leadership of the party wants. He's not a true conservative. And you don't need, in Utah, somebody who runs from the center. You need a conservative, and I'm delighted that they've gotten rid of him, and I look forward to the new senator from Utah. I hope they stay active, though, because we've got to get rid of Scott Matheson, the Democratic congressman from Utah, because he's even worse.
The senator is one of Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's closest allies in the Senate. How does his loss change the Republicans' leadership team in the Senate?
Well, I think the Republicans in the House and the Senate need to reevaluate their leadership. I think that after the 2010 elections, you're going to have about 160 old Republican congressmen carried over from before, and you'll probably have 70 or so new ones. And the tail here has a real capacity to wag the dog. And in the U.S. Senate, you'll have 41 Republicans, or 40 now, who were held over, well, 39 if you exclude Brown, and you probably have 12 or 13 new ones. And that really is an opportunity for a new sweep in the leadership. And I think that McConnell and Boehner, we have questions about both of them. You know, I never liked that Boehner walked around the House floor passing out checks from the tobacco lobby. And McConnell also has strong establishment ties. He's probably a little bit better than Boehner. But we've got to scrutinize them, and I look forward to some more changes in the Republican Party.
Now, in the next few weeks, a number of states will be casting primary ballots for top races at stake in the midterm elections. So we'd like to get your thoughts on a few of the May races real quickly. In Pennsylvania's Senate primary race, Representative Joe Sestak is cutting into Senator Arlen Specter's lead in the polls, dropping it below double digits. Is Specter out?
Well, I think that Sestak may defeat Specter. Specter has not only lost his lead, he's well under 50% of the primary vote, and most of the undecided tends to go against the incumbent. I think Sestak or Specter are going to be beatable. I think that Toomey will defeat either of them, but it's always nice to see Arlen Specter go.
Blanche Lincoln of Arkansas has emerged as one of the Senate's most conservative Democrats, but she faces a serious challenge from Arkansas Lieutenant Governor Bill Halter. Who takes this one?
Well, first, my point is there is no such thing as a conservative Democrat, so to be one of the most conservative is kind of an oxymoron. They all do whatever they're told to do, and Lincoln did. Halter, her primary opponent, is to the left of Blanche, and I think either one of them will be defeated in November by John Boozman, who I think will and should win the Republican primary for Senate.
With Republican Senator Jim Bunning of Kentucky retiring, it seems that the Republican Party is divided in its endorsements of political outsider Rand Paul, the son of Ron Paul, and establishment candidate Trey Grayson. Who takes this race?
If I lived in Kentucky, I'd vote for Ron Paul's son. I think that, well, there's a lot that Paul says that I don't agree with. I think that you clearly need new blood there. You have to distinguish between a kind of state like, say, Massachusetts or New York or even Pennsylvania, where the establishment of the state tends to be Democrat, and if you're a Republican, it probably is an ideological conclusion. From a state like Kentucky, where the establishment of the state is largely Republican, and you aren't necessarily a conservative, you're just a mainstream politician in a conservative state. And they're going to be suspect when we get to Washington. The pressure to raise taxes in 2011 is going to be enormous. It'll be very similar to the pressure on Greece right now to raise taxes. And we need Republican legislators who stand up and say no. And I don't think Bennett could have been counted on. I don't think Trey Grayson can be counted on. But a guy like Pat Toomey or Paul probably can be counted on to say no.
Now, Republican Senator Mike Crapo of Idaho has declined to meet his GOP rival in a televised debate. To what extent do you think that could hurt him?
Well, I think it could hurt him badly. Idaho is one of those states where you're not necessarily Republican, you're just a mainstream politician from Idaho. And I think in those areas it's very important for us to make sure that we have good, solid Republicans and good, solid anti-tax positions.
Dick, the Obama administration has been heavily criticized for reading Miranda rights to terror suspects, including the accused Times Square attacker. But on Sunday, we learned from Eric Holder that the White House wants to work with Congress on possible limitations of the constitutional rights afforded terrorism suspects, even for American citizens. What do you make of this?
Well, obviously, they should not be read Miranda rights. We've been saying this for a long time, and it's nice that Holder has come around, but it's too late for two terror suspects, the Detroit airport bomber and the would-be Times Square bomber, who were Mirandized and got attorneys as a result of that. But there's a much broader issue here. There is significant evidence that, and Peter King, the congressman from New York, the Republican from Long Island, was telling me, and I believe he was going to say this on the Fox News Sunday interview with Mike Wallace, that the terror suspect in the Times Square case was tipped off that the feds knew who he was by leaks from the administration, that they wanted to show how aggressive they were in fighting terror, and they detailed their progress in this investigation before they had apprehended the suspect. And the result was that he went to Kennedy Airport, got on a plane, and came within a hair's breadth of escaping, simply because the administration was so anxious for PR opportunities that they couldn't keep their mouths shut.
Last question, Dick. It's been more than 2 weeks since that oil rig explosion that caused the BP oil spill, and the oil is still flowing. Do you agree that the Obama administration hasn't moved quickly enough to respond? And do you believe that the spill will either derail or fast-track climate change legislation?
I think initially the administration was slow to respond and kind of had a hands-off, leave it to British Petroleum. I think that since then they've been doing all they can, I believe. I'm not an engineering expert. I certainly would look forward to reading what the experts have to say about it. I reject entirely the idea that this is deliberate by the Obama administration. But I will say that politically it's helped Obama. His job rating has gone up by 2 or 3 points in the last week, and I think it's because of the oil spill. Not simply because people approve of his handling. I don't think that's it. Just that when oil spills, it tends to ratify the reason to have a Democrat because they're supposedly better on these kinds of issues. And yes, I think it's unfortunate, but I think BP's irresponsibility has made it very hard for there to be oil drilling.
All right, Dick Morris, thanks so much for joining us. It's always great to see you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.